Did you know that historically one of the most widely used healing substances was sulfur, which is a mineral that our bodies need anyway? In ancient cultures, it was used for infections, skin conditions, and cleansing the body. And lately, I've been kind of going down this sulfur rabbit hole, specifically as it applies to detox and fascia, because those are two things that I'm very interested in right now. And I have a great quote from Charlotte Gerson of the Gerson Institute, and here is what she says. She says, all chronic disease and degenerative disease is caused by two things, toxicity and deficiency. And when we dive into sulfur, you'll see that sulfur checks both of those boxes. So this is for informational and educational purposes only. I am not a doctor. I do not have a license to give medical advice, so this is just for informational purposes. So before we dive into sulfur a little bit, let's kind of zoom out and look at the body and how it requires flow, right? If you think about the lymphatic system, it's a transport system. It delivers nutrients to the cells and it carries trash and waste out of the cells. And it has to travel through the fascia. And there's a lot of things that can cause fascia to become blocked and clogged. But if you think about flow and where flow becomes blocked, you can see how that blockage might create disease. So it kind of makes sense to me that those two things, deficiencies and toxicity, create disease. So let's dive into sulfur a little bit and talk about how has it historically been used. Sulfur is an essential mineral found in every cell of the body, and it's the third most common substance in the body. It's needed to build collagen and keratin to support your skin, hair, nails, fascia, all of those things. And it supports detox in the liver. It's very supportive of the liver, and it helps the body produce glutathione, which is the master antioxidant to help us detoxify. It's found in foods like garlic and onions and all of your cruciferous veggies, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, all of those things, as well as protein foods like eggs, beef, chicken, dairy, and those kinds of things. Sulfur was used as medicine in ancient Egypt, Greece, China, Ayurveda. Hippocrates recommended sulfur for skin conditions like scabies and leprosy and other skin conditions. And if you think about like mineral baths and hot springs and sulfur was a big part of that. People would go and soak in it. And even in modern day, I remember going to Alabama and to a hot springs, and people would fill up their water containers and drink from it and soak in it. So the question becomes, how did something that we used for literally thousands of years for so many different things become almost non-existent in our modern health conversations? And the answer to that is we kind of moved away from whole substance healing into isolated pharmaceuticals. So sulfur was one of the early drugs that became sulfa drugs. In fact, my mother-in-law, who is in her early 80s, her grandfather was a medical doctor, and he had a medical kit that included sulfa. And she remembers, after her grandfather passed, her father inherited that kit, and she remembers sulfa being used for everything from wounds to everything. Sulfa was pretty much the go-to. So let's kind of zoom out and we'll look at what happened in the early 1900s that kind of shifted all of this. And spoiler alert, it was the Flexner Report. So in 1910, Abraham Flexner was commissioned by the Carnegie Foundation and the American Medical Association to evaluate and standardize medical schools across North America. So the Flexner Report really shifted everything. The medical education was standardized. Everything was much more scientific, laboratory based. There was requirements, to have certain equipment and, lab equipment and things like that. Hospital based clinical practice. And so you may have heard that we used to, in the olden days, we used to have hospitals with sun decks and things like that. And a lot of that stuff faded away in that era and went to the new standard of science, lab tests, pharmaceuticals, all of that. And a lot of the more holistic, nutrition-based, mineral-based, herbs, plant medicine, that sort of thing, kind of got largely phased out because there wasn't really a place for it to compete. It didn't make sense to have the lab, all of that expensive equipment. And so a lot of that was lost during that era. So sulfa medications are still used today, but as pharmaceuticals have evolved, they have kind of created new antibiotics and other things. So they're not as widely used as they once were, but they are still used in modern medicine. So kind of going back to sulfur, the mineral, most people are familiar with MSM, which is methylsulfonyl methane. And that is a natural occurring substance. And MSM is about 1/3 sulfur. So, and most people, I would say, are probably deficient. It's pretty tough to get a therapeutic dose of sulfur from foods. So if you're looking for therapeutic dose, you're really looking at MSM. And one of my favorite resources on MSM is this book right here, The Miracle of MSM, The Natural Solution for Pain. It's by Stanley Jacobs, Ronald Lawrence, and Martin Zucker. And you can screenshot that right there. Fantastic resource. It's got just so much information in there, and I absolutely love it. My book is very worn. I've had it for many years. I've got lots of highlights in there, lots of pages dog-eared, and it's just a fantastic resource. Lately, I have been just kind of diving back into fascia and minerals and kind of looking at those two buckets that Charlotte Gerson talked about, the detox and the deficiency aspect. And I've increased my salt and I've increased my sulfur. And the first week I did that, I released 2 pounds. So it's definitely something that I feel is helping me. And I just thought it was interesting and that you might find it interesting too. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave me a comment below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.